Welcome to another episode of Good Finds Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Watkins, and today I'm talking to Stacey Jones, who is our Strategic Partnership Specialist. That's a mouthful, but Stacey, tell us a little bit about what it is you do and what that job title means.
Sure. Keyword there being partnership, right? So a large part of my role is to advance Goodwill's mission to partner strategically with places like businesses and community organizations, ways that we can benefit not just our community, but the people we serve, so our participants. That comes all kinds, ways, shapes, forms. Sometimes that's with, a local housing authority that, needs to give some equity to our participants, in getting job placement or new career pathways. Or sometimes it's, how do we connect them to our partners that may be doing it even better than us? So Iowa Works and our American Job Center are close partners of ours. And that's kind of my role, is to help act as a liaison.
Well, that is a big responsibility. Tell me a little bit about your background, kind of how you found your way to Goodwill and what excites you about your role here.
Sure. So I actually started early on in my career as I'm a social worker by trade. I have a BSW. Started my career in homeless services, moved over to mental health, worked in mental health crisis services. And I said to myself, I really want to get not just in the field, but also how do I make a difference in a different way? So I went and got my master's in nonprofit management, and here we are. I've started working more at a programmatic level. How do I create programs that are meaningful? How do we take data to make that mean something, to leverage our dollars, at our local, state, and federal level? And now I get to talk about the awesome things that we do with those grant funds to further expand that narrative. So I found my way to Goodwill, but I think Goodwill found me.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I ask this to all my interviews, and I typically get the same answer when I ask, what's a typical day for you like? And most people say, there is no typical day, but maybe for you, you do have more of a routine. I don't know. Tell me a little bit about what your workday entails.
It's exciting. Every day there's a new person at the other end that either has a grand idea or I have the grand idea and we get to explore it together. And that's a real benefit to being in this role because it is so flexible and we have so much to offer at Goodwill that we can either be a solution or we can be a liaison to a potential solution. So there's never a time where I am not excited to come to work.
What are the kind of businesses you're looking to partner with?
We have a number of career pathways, and that grows all the time. Some occupational skills trainings that we offer have been foundational. Things like our custodial or our nutrition, food, serve safe. Those things are kind of foundational, but career pathways are innumerable. So we recently expanded into manufacturing. So ideally, we would want more partnerships with businesses so they recognize that we're a solution, that we have a pipeline that could fill those vacancies that they have, or we could upskill their current staff. So in one sense, manufacturing would be great, but we're always willing to partner with businesses that serve all kinds of things. Like, is it information technology? Is it hospitality? All things that align with our work for our participants.
Sure. Now let's break this down to someone who maybe knows nothing about Goodwill, can't figure out why we're talking about business partnerships, online training, OST programs. All of this may be just total foreign language to them. And they're like, well, this isn't your thrift stores. What's this all about?
Sure.
What do you say to people who just don't know this aspect of our organization?
Sure. I always get I had no idea, that terminology that comes out. And I always start with telling people that Goodwill is essentially a social enterprise, that for every dollar that you entrust in us, 88 cents of that is reinvested into our mission. And that mission is, to help people get good jobs. And we do that in all kinds of ways. Is that, occupational skills trainings? Is that, where we have our Helm Career Centers across our 19 counties that, is a walk-in center where people can get in-person, person-centered support? Is it, I've been out of the workforce for a long time. What does an interview look like? We offer that too. Maybe it's somebody who has even more challenges, right? Like, I don't know how to deal with my transportation, or I need childcare. We have career navigators for that give that one-on-one personalized support so our participants reach their goals. And so even though the dollar, that you're spending at our retail stores, or the things that you are donating, are important because they are directly derived to our participant.
Sure.
That's kind of what I try to tell people. But also, part of being a partnership specialist isn't just talking about those key, elevator pitches. It is, what does it mean for them? So a lot of discussion about what are the things that our business partners or potential partners, what are their needs? And what can we do to help them serve that need? So what is the solution that we are in that narrative? Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes they're satisfied, they're good, they've got Indeed, they already have support services. That's wonderful. But I have yet to meet a business today that does not say, I need more access to more qualified applicants. And that is what we produce here at Goodwill.
Oh, I bet, I'm sure. Tell me a little bit, I guess, about what it is the people, our program participants look for. Where do they come from? What are, the different walks of life for the people that you serve, that you're helping through these partnerships?
Sure, they're your neighbor. There is actually no definition. I know there are 154 unique Goodwills across the country. And so oftentimes people view Goodwill as just a name brand, but the truth is that we're all unique. And here at Goodwill of the Heartland, we cover 19 counties. So when we say, well, we serve the community, those communities do look different. And the benefit to me being here in the Quad Cities and my team that is spread out across our counties, we can really be responsive to that. So when I tell people, what is a participant? What is a good referral? We get that question a lot. It's your neighbor. Who would benefit from the good job? Who could benefit from the services that we offer at no cost to you? What is the benefit to you as the business owner? There is no eligibility, right? Take the word eligibility out of your mind. Say, oh, Goodwill is a solution for you. That's what I try to tell people.
And a lot of people, there are people who know a little more about Goodwill than our thrift stores, and they tend to associate us with working with people with disabilities.
Sure.
And, and we do, but there's a lot bigger population that we're serving, which is what you said. It includes everyone to the extent that it could be your neighbor, could be a family member, could be a friend, So what would you say to people who are surprised to hear that we do more than just serve people with disabilities?
Well, first, I would ask them to check us out on our website and kind of get linked in and looped in with, us here as strategic partnership specialists, so we can talk more about what are the things that Goodwill does, what is our community impact, and what are ways that we can partner with you, not only to advance what you're doing, but to help our participants achieve their goals. I'm a firm believer that everyone has mutual interests. It's just a matter of where you can find them. And that's okay if it takes a couple of years to get there. I have somebody that we worked with 3 years ago. She really wanted to do co-enrollment. Hey, I got these services. You got those services. It took us 3 years to get it done, but we got it done.
Sure.
And that didn't come just because, we talked about it. It was because there was some intentional conversation over a period of time. So I like to say that us here at Goodwill, we're not just neighbors, but we're good partners.
Sure.
And that means keeping in good communication, good contact. So I just encourage people to check us out on our website, keep posted, sign up for our newsletter, and come out to our retail stores, because our team members there are wonderful, and they're great ambassadors to our services and our mission, just like I am.
Sure. And for those who don't know, our website address is www.goodwillheartland.org. That's www.goodwillheartland.org. So yes, check it out. And when people go to the website, they may be surprised to find something called Get Started with Goodwill. Do you know about that? Tell me a little bit about, I know that includes online training opportunities, and since the pandemic, several years ago, it has been a real emphasis on ease of access for people without being face to face. Of course, people have different schedules too. So tell me a little bit about
Yeah.
what Get Started with Goodwill is all about.
Yeah, so I really am a big fan of that particular clickable button because it gives a great introduction about what are the simple ways that you can interface or get to know us here at Goodwill. If it helps you find out what is my closest home career center, what are the services that you provide, what are the at no cost occupational skills trainings that will give me industry-wide recognized credentials in a short period of time. How do I get that good job? And what is the impact of Goodwill itself? What is it that we are doing, and what is our evidence that what we're doing is good? So, even if it was a question, from a, in partnership, there is no limit to that. We could be serving somebody that's a nonprofit professional, or we could be serving somebody straight out of high school. So what I particularly like about Get Started with Goodwill is it speaks to everybody. So you're going to find something of value on that webpage either way. Across our 19 counties, we have multiple services, multiple locations. So I really like that the access is there and also an explanation.
That's a really good point. You mentioned that we do serve 19 counties, and we don't necessarily have a physical presence in all of those counties, but through our website, we kind of do. I mean, we, like you said, anyone can access these programs and these classes. Tell me, can you think of any particular person that you've helped that was kind of an inspiration, that was kind of a success story, if you will, that really reminded you of why you do what you do?
Yeah, I would say I recently had an HR recruiter, a human resource recruiter from another business who didn't necessarily need a pipeline per se. She wanted to post the job. But that quickly turned into, how did you get to what you are doing? Because she was so impressed with the work that we do here and how our team works and how we really thrive by working together to benefit our participant. And I was kind of taken aback at that because she was in her role. She was happy. And it was a fresh reminder that even the people that are, have some minimal skills or at those entry level skills, that even full force workplace professionals can find a home, not just as Goodwill as an employer, but can access our resources so they can achieve that next level, or maybe, move on to be a partnership specialist like me.
So, again, I referenced the pandemic from several years ago, and it really changed our workplace a lot. People went remote. There are now more opportunities as a result for people to be independent of a specific geographical location where they work. There's also just a change in the workforce with so many boomers retiring. A lot of people are aging out. Employers are struggling to find replacement workers. Tell me, I guess, about what your observations are about just the workplace in general, kind of
Sure.
the work climate. Where are we at
Yeah.
right now?
The truth is that we are approaching a pretty significant workforce gap, right? We have a lot of we are now an industry of 5 working generations, which is wild when you think about it, right? Like that's a huge swath of time.
Sure is.
So we have some talent that's leaving, but we also have new talent entering, and they are from completely different cultures, right? So boomers, that generation, they say, okay, well, I'm done. Now they're in succession planning. And then you have a whole nother group of people who feel like they're ready for, somebody who's a millennial that spent 10 years. Technology is changing the way that our workforce solves problems. And in large part because we have a gap. We have a gap in the number of available workforce. We are having less children. Right now in the trades, for every 4 people that are leaving, only 1 qualified applicant is there to replace them.
Wow.
So we either have a solution to leverage technology or really pick up on how many qualified applicants we can get into the workforce. And the truth is, it's a combination of both. And that's across every industry. That we are seeing a large labor force shortage that won't change. So In part, for us here at Goodwill, that means that we really need to make and continue to sustain our, Google IT information technology certificates, things like data analytics and automation through Python and, cybersecurity. Those things are now becoming foundational skills, even amongst the most entry-level staff. So in large part, we have an opportunity to continue to be a part of that solution, but we also need to recognize we have to continue to be innovative because the workforce is going to be asked to do that.
Great. That's very interesting. But on one hand, I hear from employers what we've always, the old saying, good help is hard to find. And now more than ever, employers are struggling finding qualified applicants. But then on the job seeker side, I hear people say, well, no one's hiring. I can't get an interview. There seems to be, you talk about gaps, there seems to be a gap between employers who say they can't find qualified workers and workers who say that they can't get an interview. What's that all about?
Yeah, so it's twofold. One is an interesting fun fact is that 58% of Gen Z are getting jobs based off of what their peers say. So if our peers aren't saying, well, that's a good job over there, they're not applying, or they just frankly don't know about it. Two, we don't market open positions very intentionally, right? We have almost become disconnected from our communities. We rely heavily on Indeed instead of door-to-door knocking, right? Have even messaging boards. Right now, we're in an information attention age.
It's funny you should say that because I was just reading on Reddit. I'm a big Reddit fan. An employer that was really frustrated because they put a job opening, they listed a job opening, and they were flooded with, it was an in-state, in-person, you had to be at the geographical location, but they were getting flooded by applicants from all over the world, clearly hadn't read the job description, clearly weren't necessarily, like they were looking to get a work visa, or there was some other thing that just made it impossible for them to filter out these hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And they were lamenting, what is a person to do? How are you supposed to hire anyone today? And I thought, in the old days, someone would walk over to your business, would go to the receptionist, would ask for an application, and would sit down there in the lobby and fill out that application. I thought, maybe the old ways will come back, because really that
what do
would be a way
they say about bell-bottom jeans that they always seem to keep coming back? I think we were talking about COVID a few minutes ago, and the truth is that COVID had some pretty substantial social change aspects.
Sure did.
And I think we've learned that some of that was not good, and that our young people feel disconnected, not just from their friend groups, but from their parents, from their communities. And the benefit to our home career centers, being a good example, is that businesses can come to us and ask for that in-person outreach, and that's a solution. We do that now, where somebody will say, hey, I have this great paying job. If you have folks that come in, can you really talk to them about the benefits? And we're happy to do that. So even if there's a national organizer, right? Like, I'll give an example, big chain, maybe Airgas, right? They're all over the country. They get a lot of this bombardment of bots. Right? Bots are feeding into this. It's kind of a hacking scheme to force you to do something different. Well, you can somewhat address that by just asking the local workforce partners to say, hey, I really need your help getting this out. I have a shortage in this area. And almost everyone, I have yet to come across somebody who would say no. So I think in some parts for us here at Goodwill, we have to talk about those benefits. And I want to go back a little bit to your first question. Well, the two-part question is, what does this mean for businesses? How is the changing workforce impacting them? Well, our young people are very used to automation, and they're very used to short-term text. And that multi-generational workforce now has to start accommodating this new communication style. And that's okay, right? Because we adopted, I know your generation did, my generation did, the human cycle, the culture of our community and how we communicate is always an evolution. So I think there's some compromise on both ends. One is that businesses probably could get more intentional without reaching young people, but young people also have to learn how to seek those opportunities out.
Sure.
So a community-wide effort there is important, and businesses are the solution, right? They are the engine that keeps our economy going, and it's important for us to support them and participants to recognize, like, listen, we need them just as much as they need you. We're in the same ship, we're in the same boat, and our oars got to keep moving.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, generations, I mean, I'm of the generation that whose parents said, you're lucky to have a job. Do whatever they say. If they say jump, ask how high. You know what I mean? We were in a very employer in the driver's seat economy, and workers were pretty much beholden to whatever their whims were. And that kind of translated into an application process that was laborious. It was long. It was like multi-pages of applications, and many times you were asked to upload your resume and your cover letter and then enter the same information, online. And for some businesses, they're still working that way. It sounds to me like young people just don't have the patience for that kind of yesterday's, approach to hiring.
I think from a personal perspective that we have desensitized them. And I feel that too. I feel desensitized to this. You have to do that because the world didn't end.
Right.
If I didn't.
Right.
And because now it's shifted from an employer-driven economy, it's now an employee-driven economy. So just like the housing market, it's kind of shifting and it's driving change on both ends. Now we see more responsive benefits packages, right? Somebody over here, I don't have any kids. I don't need a healthcare package. Well, that means my benefits package is not one size fits all anymore. And you're seeing a growing number of companies kind of shift in that. How can we make this more flexible? How can we advertise its actual benefits? How do we make it relevant? But I'm very impressed, actually, in our local area. Not just the businesses and participants. None of us could coordinate this any better than our Quad City Chamber of Commerce.
Oh,
right.
Great.
We have one of the strongest chambers. I've lived all over the country. One of the strongest chambers I've ever had the privilege to work with. So they have intentional conversations, not just from an economic point of view, but they encourage youth. They have youth programs. There's work-based learning. They talk about work-based learning. They actively pursue businesses. They want to expand their interests, and they're always welcoming to any business that wants to work on behalf of the region. So I think any recommendation I would have is to really consider becoming a member at our Quad City Chamber. It's invaluable, not just for a business solution standpoint, but you're a part of a community. And a lot of the work is lifted off of you to try to figure it all out on your own. They'll give you those economic forecasts. They'll give you those outlooks. They'll invite you to those, networking events. And if you come to the networking events, you might find me where I'm talking about things like pipeline work, or how can I upskill, or sometimes, and you mentioned earlier about workforce readiness. Well, we get the applicant, but then we have a thing that's happening where people don't want to come to work, right? They're not showing up on time. They don't value. This is very much a Gen X type thing, right? Like, you need to show up on time.
Yeah.
That is part of the work. That is kind of being lost. Right.
That's interesting because, like I said, my generation was kind of really uptight and, wanted to go to prove their worth, that they should have a job. And now we have the youngest generation that's on the other side of the spectrum, which is really casual, used to the social isolation, may not have the soft skills that older generations have, may be intimidated by, workplace communication that they are unfamiliar with. So,
part of a consequence of COVID, to be honest. And, I'm glad we talked about soft skills, because here at Goodwill, we have a program called World of Work Workshops. And it's it doesn't have to be completed on all of them, but there are a series of 12 to 13 work readiness based programs, right? These are small, short, Hey, what does it mean to show up to work on time? How should I be dressed to go to an interview? What are typical work expectations? How do I navigate complex communication, or even just have the courage to go and ask for help, right? So we have World of Work workshops that target those soft skills. So even if we hire, from a business partnership standpoint, and somebody were to share that with me, I would talk about that. We have a short World of Work workshop that could really benefit there. How would you feel about us introducing it? Can we pilot it? Do you want me to host something? Do you want to come to our home career center and we'll do a class? So there's solutions to soft skills, but right now they're hard to define because they're more of a cultural difference than they are skills. And we got to bridge the gap somehow, and I'd like to think that we have this World of Work workshop does that for all parties.
Interesting. Well, we're running out of time, so I'm going to just wrap this up by saying, tell me a little bit about your experience working here at Goodwill. What is it like? Talk about employers. Obviously, your employer, my employer is Goodwill of the Heartland. Tell me a little bit about your experience here and what it is you like about working for us.
Sure. Like I said earlier, I feel like Goodwill found me because it was a culmination of a really good match. Right. So I get the privilege of bragging about a nonprofit every day and the impactful work. And in the same time, be able to be flexible with those resources that Goodwill has to offer. So I've worked for many years in program development, and now I get to do it at a much larger scale with a lot of flexibility, which is why I love it here, because I get my hands in both pots.
Interesting. Well, that's a great way to wrap things up. We kind of came full circle and talked about what we began with, which is Goodwill finding you. I'm sure glad we did, because you've been a tremendous asset to our organization, and I'm really excited about the work you're doing. And every time you talk, it is opening my eyes as to how we really are making a difference in our communities. So thanks so much, Stacey.
Thank you for having me.
We've been talking to Stacey Jones, Strategic Partnership Specialist at Goodwill of the Heartland. If you're a local business looking to hire, or you'd like to partner with Goodwill of the Heartland to place qualified individuals looking for work, visit our website at goodwillheartland.org. That's goodwillheartland.org, and click the Contact Us link at the top of the page. We'll be sure to route your inquiry to the right individual who can help. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Good Finds Podcast.